Furniture surfaces are becoming increasingly important. More on that now. Welcome to Ligna TV. Today we are talking about how surfaces are becoming increasingly multifaceted, the number of customization possibilities is growing, and how completely new functions can be integrated into surfaces. And so I'm very pleased to have the following guests with me here in the studio. Roland Heeger, Managing Director at Schattdecor, Professor Maximilian Ober, Laboratory Director for Surface Technology at the University of Applied Sciences Rosenheim, Dr. Klaus, Managing Director of the OEA Organic and Printed Electronics Association, and Eberhard Kappler, Interior Designer at Spek Design. We see surfaces wherever we look, and I'd be interested to hear your personal opinion. How important are furniture surfaces to you personally? And let me start by asking you, Mr. Heeger.
Our surfaces are used everywhere, in furniture, floors, cupboards, kitchens, and so we're designing living spaces, and that's why it's so nice that we can make a contribution by following trends and giving customers new surfaces.
Mr. Ober, how about you?
I think it's important for surfaces to appeal to all of our senses. You can smell them, hopefully not in a negative sense. You can see them, feel them. So we're appealing to people, and that is more important than the technical surface, and I think that will be very important in the future.
Mr. Heeger, what is particularly important to you?
The surface is the first impression I get, but it's also a very lasting impression. First of all visually, then touch, and it also strongly defines how we perceive quality.
Mr. Kappler, as a designer, why are pleasant surfaces so important?
Surfaces have an effect just like materials do, and if I'm stood here at this table, I'm in contact with it. It's like an electrical contact with the material, if you will. And our largest organ is the skin. And this connection, like I say, goes far beyond just the visual sphere.
Furniture and structural elements can be produced in any appearance these days. We visited Mr. Heeger's company, Schattdecor in Tansau. They produce decorative paper, finished foils and melanin films.
Schattdecor have been developing their expertise in decor printing for the last 30 years and are today the world market leader and surface experts. The current industrial digital printing system offers brand new possibilities. It prints at up to 162 meters per minute on a width of 2.25 meters using gravure printing identical pigments.
Today's technology enables us to print larger patterns. It allows us to produce digitally printed decor on an industrial scale and allows our customers to order smaller batch sizes and rainbow rolls.
This new technology enables new print types, including in the wood and stone industry. Multicolor prints and a wide range of mixed patterns become possible. However, gravure printing remains important for surfaces because digital printing is still limited, for example concerning the use of certain effect colors.
Mr. Heeger, everyone knows digital printing. Why has it only recently become an option for large-scale surfaces? What was the problem?
Well, we had to develop the technology so that we can print in the entire width that's standard in the wood composite industry, namely 2 meters 25 or 7 feet, so that we can print at speeds that work for mass production. You heard it, 162 meters per minute. That's quite a difference to the small desk printer that you have. And then in the high quality that the furniture industry and the flooring and other sectors demand. We had to develop that, we couldn't buy it, and we now have the first industrial machine that can provide that at a level suitable for mass and industrial production.
So speed and quality were the problems there. Mr. Ober, do you agree with that?
Yes, we were following that. It started back then when the company Durst got involved together with Berkeley. They developed a system with a width of 63 or 65 centimeters. At the time, it wasn't possible to go wider in single-pass printing because the processing power wasn't there. The technical possibilities weren't there at all. Then, of course, the question of quality. That was the beginning of single-pass printing. Then 2 years later we went back to multi-pass printing to achieve the right quality, but the quantity wasn't possible. And so we worked our way up step by step and gradually increased the quality. It's been a long process and we still have a little way to go. Yes, developing the colors also takes time, so that they have the authenticity that's demanded here in this process. It wasn't something that we could simply buy just as a finished system. We were also involved in the development to get it to this stage. Then there is the cost of the colors too. If we think now about those little bottles, what they cost. But of course, when we were producing in high volume, we eventually got a reasonable price. The quality of printing technology has increased by 80% every 2 years. That's pretty much the scale of the development there.
Mr. Kappler, let's take a look at things from your designer perspective. How do you feel about digital printing?
Well, digital printing is indeed a great opportunity. It's about making the most of opportunities, as we often hear. Applying the surface to the material in the right way, and so it's fair to say that direct printing onto materials of course presents more opportunities to put the focus back onto the material.
So you see a big opportunity there. So let's try and look into the crystal ball and see what the future holds. Mr. Ober, if you look into the future, do you think that in 10 years' time every surface will be printed digitally, or even that every company will have its own digital printer?
I think we need to look at that in a very broad sense. There are various approaches. If we think about car interiors, for example, if you go to Rolls-Royce, they won't want things to be printed. Even Porsche, Mercedes premium classes, they don't want things printed. It absolutely has to be veneer, and that's exactly the same, we mentioned it earlier, in high-quality ship interiors. If we're at the very top level, we won't see printing technology, at least not large scale, maybe just in small areas. And now the question is, we're going from the large quantities that Schatt do to completely tailor-made, and I think we'll see more and more digital printing. A student recently said to me that it's possible that in the future carpenters will have a digital printer, that they won't be pressing veneer anymore. I wouldn't like to generalize that much, because there are companies that work very individually. They only use veneer. But certainly there are an awful lot who use digital printing, just like we today have a digital printer at home. But there is one thing we mustn't forget here, and that's something we place great emphasis on. We have a very large design department that develops these decors. The physical printing is just one aspect of producing and developing surfaces. And what we have to print, to identify these trends together with designers, to push them, and then turn them into prints. That's an integral part of the work we do, and I can't just outsource that in one go. But I have the option of customizing. We can see at Ligna today how digital surfaces that we have printed have been put together as three-dimensional cupboards. The left-hand side is then no longer the same as the right-hand side. We print a dress for furniture, basically. That's now possible, and those are the new aspects that digital printing is presenting. I can't imagine that in 10 years we'll have got rid of all our 35 gravure printers. Rather, we'll be supplementing them with digital printing.
So it will definitely be an addition, maybe a complete substitute, we don't yet know exactly. We'll have to wait and see what happens. We've talked a lot about the appearance, but what will surfaces be able to do in the future? One idea is printed electronics as household helpers. That already exists, for example, in the kitchen. Wooden composite boards that react to touch and are completely smooth. Or OLEDs. OLEDs emit light over the entire area, so we perceive it completely differently and looks much more even and is therefore more pleasant. The light-emitting layers are as thin as a human hair, and that is exactly why they offer completely new opportunities. And ever more surfaces are equipped with solar technology. For example, in the OP tree, the organic photovoltaic tree, where the leaves convert sunlight into electricity. Well, Mr. Heeger, what trends do you see?
We can see that function is increasingly becoming a part of surfaces in buildings. In furniture, wall and building cladding, light is very important. You can make light sources flexible, which means they can be integrated even better. You can generate energy with solar panels. You can use sensors, touch sensors, to add controls like we know them from smartphones and tablets to surfaces, and use them to control other functions. That allows you to create new applications even in a very traditional industry.
So there's a multitude of new possibilities, which brings us to you as a designer. You create and design surfaces yourself. What is your latest design development?
Well, what we've been recently accompanying and developing is borrowed from the wood sector. It's a natural product, a veneer, but not a traditional wood one like beech, or cherry tree or oak, but something like this. You can see it here. It's a piece of hay veneer. That means scattered hay shreds that are pressed. And the additional effect, the additional function of this surface is its scent. It smells like hay. So if you're allergic to hay, you'll also be allergic to this surface. That's another function, a very natural one. So that's another trend we can observe. On the one hand, this replica, the perfect imitation. On the other hand, the demand moving away from perfection because it's the faults or other rustic properties that make authenticity.
You have a few other surfaces there. What makes them special? What are their functions?
Well, let's start with the function. This is a conventional veneer, applied to a non-woven fabric. As you can see from the shape, it's an insole for a shoe. It's an insole for a shoe made from cedar wood, which is antibacterial, similar to cradle wood, stone pine, which slows down the pulse frequency and helps you to sleep better. That's an additional function for a surface. And that even works with this thin layer. So, those functions can either be digital or part of the material itself. That's what we can make visible, something we can't do with those chemical properties.
So some very interesting new functions. However, I think that they are more of a niche. What do you think? Will surfaces with a function become a mass market one day? Or will they rather stay part of a niche? What's your opinion? A question to all of you.
Well, you're calling it a niche, but I can imagine equipping those things with technology. The wood, the hay, could also make a print. That's just as possible. I think you can't do one thing without the other. I think it's always important that surfaces create a sense of coziness, that you feel comfortable, and that you can create the possibility to add switching elements with those additional functions. I don't think we'll see whole walls filled with functions. People wouldn't want to be surrounded by walls like that. I think a combination is important. Yes, I think it's a plastic. When you do a digital print, you get support from wooden material. But applying a veneer results in a face veneer of higher quality. That also has an effect. That also has an effect, as was just mentioned, for the stone pine. That effect is not to be underestimated. That's evidently also true for larger dimensions. We're currently doing an office floor, for example, and we dropped the idea of real wood veneer desks. They were just not the perfect fit because of the hierarchy level and the quality of use. Of course, the price also plays a role, and so we have to make compromises. But that being said, when I touch plastic, I see plastic. When I see wood, I want to feel that it's wood. So the limits are very blurred. Of course, digital printing offers additional possibilities to mix that up.
But let's get back to the initial question. Is it a niche or a mass market, Mr. Heeger?
I think with today's technologies, it still needs to develop to become a mass market. There are niche applications today, and we mustn't forget that these natural surfaces don't have the properties that are expected from surfaces, printed surfaces, in the wood industry today. We don't accept color changes. We don't accept anything in the wood material when printing. For natural materials, it's of course part of the aging process. This hay surface smells very nice. I think it's a great idea, but it will wear off. So we just have different expectations concerning durability for these surfaces. And that's something that needs to be decided from case to case. Use case, good point. Let's say we're making a hay floor for a wedding. You could apply 100 square meters to a non-woven material that can be unrolled and rolled up again. Of course it won't last for a year, but maybe it only needs to last for an evening or a week. And it would make for an unbelievable experience. An experience telling a story, it's authentic. You'll only manage that with these kinds of things. And it's fine if it's just a niche, because a wedding is just one day and it needs to be perfect. And there's no replica with the same effect, the same sensation.
At the beginning you said surfaces are very important and they have to offer you some sort of experience. What would be your wish for the surfaces sector? Where would you say it would be absolutely amazing to have something like that? Why don't we start with you, Mr. Heeger?
We've mentioned a couple of examples such as desks and floors. They're wonderfully suited to fitting electronics. So on my desk, for example, I have my monitor, which nowadays is getting bigger and bigger, but it's still relatively small. I have a huge area where I can add additional information. Or if we stay with the floors, I can fit sensors, pressure sensors, so I can measure visitor flows. I can see who was dancing how well at a wedding. I can also use it in sheltered housing. I can see if somebody has had a fall. There are other application options that present themselves here as well. If I look at the overall market, what kind of decors are being produced, it's probably a fairly small segment, but nevertheless a very worthwhile one with high value creation.
The ideas and application options are definitely there. Mr. Ober, what would be your biggest wish?
If I think about appearance and feel, you were talking about niches, then I think niche doesn't mean the dance floor, which is a one-off. I could imagine that apartments, they're not the same all over, they're not covered entirely in melanin paper. We used to see that everything was oak P43, the floors were oak P43, the ceiling, and eventually we got sick of it. So I think we have to have something top flight here, with some sort of function. It has to offer some sort of usability. And what I would like to see in surface technology is simply that we improve our processes, that processes are more reliable, that we can serve customers better, and I hope that customers will be prepared to pay for that.
Of course, that's always the case. The market has to have potential.
In the furniture industry, we're right at the bottom. If you look at the developments in the furniture sector and compare them with the developments in golf, for example, then quite simply, we have to be cheap.
Mr. Heeger, what is your big dream?
My dream or wish would be for the surfaces that today are static when we deliver them to one day be adjustable. Living trends change, our moods change, so bringing some variability into that, I think that's something that designers dream about, but we don't have the technology for that yet.
And Mr. Kappler, what is your dream?
Yeah, I think the dream is to achieve that variability. Like maybe having wallpaper that you can take down again. That wallpaper is not necessarily made of paper, but a material like this hay or other composite materials. So where we have wood here, and there's a metal core in there. So I want to see technology develop to enable these artistic craft things to be possible on an industrial scale, with special non-woven backs, for example, that we can make these things happen. And I think where we all agree is that we need to raise awareness for materials by making it a teaching subject, so that people learn what the different materials are. Just like we talk about the different ingredients when cooking. We talk about which ingredients make a great dish. And it's the same with materials, with our living spaces, because basically at the end of the day, we're living in our own creations.
Great. So we can definitely look forward to an exciting future. Thank you to all of you for this interesting discussion. Thank you for watching. Have a good time and see you soon.